and welcome. Welcome to the Blessed Podcast, where we join Jesus where he is already at work, where we live, learn, work, and play. At Love KC, we believe that every person should hear the good news of Jesus from a friend. If that's going to happen, it will take all of us. The letters BLESS in the Blessed Podcast stand for begin with prayer, listen to God and to those around you, eat together, serve, and share. Share your story and share his story. As always, we have free resources to help you live on mission at our website, lovekc.net, and there you can find upcoming events. We interview a wide range of people on the Blessed Podcast, well-known authors, speakers, and leaders, plus everyday people, because we want you to meet those you might not get to meet on your own, and we want you to be able to identify with someone a lot like you. Our podcasts drop the 15th and 30th of the month. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe and share. Now let's jump into this episode of the Blessed Podcast with your host, Gary Kendall, and co-host, Samantha Lane Krebs.
Welcome to the Blessed Podcast, where we join Jesus where he's already at work, where we live, learn, work, and play. And we're excited today to welcome Halley Dean as our guest today. Halley, welcome.
Hi, Gary. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to talk about City Union Mission and about City Gap, and on top of that, God's call upon your life. So that we're glad that you're here.
Thank you.
And Samantha Lane Krebs is my co-host. Welcome, Samantha.
Thanks, Gary. Good to be here.
Samantha leads a ministry called Asian Expression, and we partner up on this podcast. On the podcast that you're joining today, just let me say thank you for tuning in, and you may be tuning in through your favorite platform, like perhaps iTunes or Google Play. You might also be joining through Love KC's Living on Mission, our Facebook group, or there's other ways. But however it is, we're glad you found us. I do encourage you to subscribe and then to share when you find things that are helpful here, share with others. And as always, we're talking primarily about people living on mission, which we define as when a person finds their identity in Jesus, that one of the things that happens after that is God usually shows us how we fit into his grand plan. We fit first as children of God, like we're sons and daughters of the Most High King, we're brothers and sisters. So that's our first calling, is to the family of Jesus. But as we become a part of the family, it's natural to join the Father in his work. And that's where this comes in today. We're talking about living on mission with Halley Dean. And Halley, I'm going to give you an opportunity here, if you would, just kind of tell people a little bit about who you are and what you're doing, and then we'll dive in deep from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gary. My name's Halley Dean. I'm a Kansas City native here. I graduated from UMKC about 4 years ago now. And I work as part of the team at City Union Mission with a new program we're launching this summer called City Gap. So City Gap, to give you just a brief overview, and we'll probably get into this more so down the road, is a program for young adults ages 18 to 21. And it focuses on helping them discover kind of God's plan for their life. So these individuals are high school graduates and, maybe don't know what comes next, whether that would be a vocation, additional education, going to college, trade school, something along those lines. We seek to equip and empower them to live out God's purpose for their life and just blow wind in their sails as they figure out what that is and what those next steps look like.
That's great, Halley. I remember meeting you at a lunch that we did for Love KC. And so it stuck out to me that you're a young woman who's diving into a field in the inner city that has some unique kind of challenges. And in my mind, the day I met you, I was just like, my mind was reeling a little bit like, so what was going on in Halley's mind that would lead her to choose, a mission like this? I think it's a cool one, but it's unique.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Oh man, that's a great question. I've asked myself that question a couple times also.
Yeah, I bet.
I think some of it would come from, I never saw myself in nonprofit work or ministry, or really, it was never something I thought would be a career. It was definitely something, it's always been a big part of my life, and things have been on my heart since a young age, as far as being raised in the church and just certain causes that, just always I felt kind of a presence there. But I, graduated and I got a job in recruiting and staffing sales. And then I've had another role within just corporate sales. And I thought that would be kind of my life trajectory and my path. And I found myself really just kind of questioning if that was God's path for me. And, I was like, not bad at this, but I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like it was what the Lord was calling me to do. And I found myself in the HR office of City Union Mission. I had never even volunteered there, but through some family, friends, and connections, kind of got in contact with someone there and was just like, I want to tell you about me, and I want to hear about what you all do and see if there is, any kind of openings or any way I can, serve, volunteer, join the team, what that would look like. And just had a really, informal conversation, and kind of left that conversation with a like, wow, like City Union Mission, like I had no idea just the scope of the ministry, and I was so excited by it. But I was also only, 6 months into a corporate sales job at that point, and I didn't really see myself leaving, and there wasn't really an opportunity either. So it was kind of one of those, like, I'm so glad we met. This is amazing, like so uplifting, so encouraging, but just keep me in mind, and I'll keep you guys in mind, and maybe it'll come back around. I was thinking even years down the road. I wasn't sure.
Right.
And I think I got an email maybe a month later or something, and my contact in the HR department was like, hey, we're starting this new program. They need someone to do the like recruiting and community outreach. Your resume, like your background, everything you were saying aligns with what they're looking for. Like, do you want to have a conversation about this? And instantly I, was reading a job description and a little bit more about the program, but there wasn't even much about the program because the program wasn't a program yet. So I was just like,
Right.
I had a lot of questions, but instantly I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm reading this email at my other job, and I'm like, I want to quit my job right now. Like I never felt so strongly that I wanted to do something. And, had a conversation, had some interviews, learned more about what it was, and, kind of saw the stars align a little bit there. And, it was really just the Lord, I think, working in that. And I so clearly see now my previous experiences were like preparing me for this. And, my time in recruiting and staffing, and my time in sales and marketing and all these things, I feel like in my first few months on the job, I've already used. It's like, I learned how to do this in this role. And now, we've needed to do that at City Gap, or we've needed to work through this. And I have that experience. So
Cool.
yeah, I've been rambling, but that's a little bit about my background and how I got here.
I do want to go back to something you mentioned, because I think this is probably true for a lot of people. There was actually, there's two things I want to say. One of them is you had some dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for a lot of people. And it's actually one of the ways that God begins to speak to his children, that maybe a change is coming, or God is doing something. He sometimes stirs up a little bit of discontent.
Yeah.
Like the mother eagle stirring up the nest when the children are about to go. But the other thing that I wanted to pick up on, because I see this as really a consistent pattern for God directing his children, is he uses a combination of their natural gifts, their life's experiences, and their spiritual gifts. Like there's some kind of coming together of these things in the place that he's calling a person to. And I saw those things happen in you. Do you think am I summarizing it in a way that was true for you?
Yeah, no, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. And, time will tell. I mean, transparently, I'm still new to the role here, and City Gap is still kind of getting up and running right now. But yeah, I completely agree. It felt like things just fell into place in a way that I never envisioned. It wasn't like, oh, this is my long-term plan that I'll get some experience in kind of corporate America and then I'll move to nonprofits. It's like, wasn't even a thought, on my radar by any means. But yeah, I
God
completely.
sped up the timeline.
Yes, exactly. So much so. But yeah, couldn't be happier and, feel really strongly that at least for the time being, this is where God wants me. And it's been good. And really just, kudos to the whole, the City Union Mission family and the GAP team in particular for making me feel welcome. And I feel like we're working really well together. So it's been very rewarding and just uplifting the whole experience so far.
I'm sure that Samantha has questions too, but before we dive into more, explain City Gap just a little bit before we,
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I kind of talked through kind of maybe the heart behind it a little bit as far as what we're trying to do, but to go through a little more detail now, it's a 12-week residential program and it's located at the City Union Mission summer camp in Warsaw, Missouri. So that's Camp Crumcito.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So we have a new building there, new to us building that was donated back to us from the city. And that's what we're currently, the team down there is renovating and turning into dormitories, offices, common space, all for the City Gap program, which is so exciting. And been down there a couple of times myself, and every time it's like there's new updates. It's like, all right, there's a wall here, there's flooring here, and it's just going to be a wonderful space I'm really excited for. But it'll be a 12-week residential program. So once we're fully ramped and up and running, we'll be looking for 20 individuals. We'll be looking for about an even amount of women and men. There we go. Participants that meet that 18 to 21-year-old age range and are just, are eager and excited about this kind of opportunity. So we'll be walking them through helping them solidify, especially early on, what those goals are for their lives, whether they want to go to school, whether they want to, pursue a different type of career trajectory, what that looks like, and helping them kind of outline those steps. And whether that would be like, all right, let's go on some college visits, let's talk through financial aid, let's think through what makes sense for you here. Or if it's more going to be just like, all right, let's do some job readiness training and preparation, helping get resumes up to speed, those types of things. And then, like I mentioned, there'll be just a whole bunch of biblical discipleship, intermingled in there in everything we do that will be seeking to just empower these individuals to live a faith-filled life. It's not a requirement that participants are believers or, come out of the program being believers. That would obviously be our hope, but we want to just equip them with that knowledge to make those choices and, live their life that way. And then we're going to be doing this all while modeling, biblical community and seeking to help them with interpersonal skills and just modeling that as we seek to just really prepare them for successful independence in life.
That's
exciting. That sounds amazing. I'm going to have to jump in here because it's stirring up too many questions in me.
Absolutely.
But, I love how, you weren't really thinking to go into a nonprofit setting and the Lord kind of just catapulted you. Yeah. But, there are also a lot of nonprofits out there, and so City Union Mission is obviously a very particular, demographic and people that they work with. So what drew you to that? Is there a backstory? Why was it important that you worked for this particular nonprofit versus, there's literally within KC, like thousands. And obviously you have a lot of talent, you could have probably worked in any of them. So can you share a little bit backstory of how, that came about and why is that important to you, this mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a couple factors. And one of the first ones would be just, I've lived in Kansas City, almost my whole life, went to school here. And so I've seen face to face with the homelessness and the reality of people standing on corners and seeing that. And I've always kind of felt that, that pull on my heartstrings of just the homelessness and that ministry as a whole. So that's kind of what I would say got me in the door of City Union Mission and just being interested in, okay, I'd like to volunteer. I'd like to get involved. I'd like to see, what it is they do and learn more at the very least. And then beyond that, City Union Mission, obviously, evangelical Christian organization. And that was something that, graduating college, I didn't realize how important that would be for me going forward, like in the workforce of just working at other organizations that, weren't Christian. And I knew that going into it, and that's okay. And that can be, fine. But it was something I really kind of found myself yearning for, of just working with organizations where I felt like I could not align. Like I felt so far from aligning with their views and their values, especially just in, the world today. I think there's some really kind of polarizing views out there. And there's just things where it was like, it was becoming harder and harder to just kind of go along with. Wow. And so when I kind of got into City Union Mission and just, my initial conversation I had just with my contact in HR, it was like, let's start with prayer. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so refreshing. Like I've never had someone in HR pray for me before. Like in those types of things of just like, it felt like a breath of fresh air in every way. So I guess, does that kind of answer your question?
No, yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Because, obviously there's the meaning and there's a compassion, there's a caring, a depth to your job that's different from the corporate world. So that was super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you mentioned a second ago that you weren't sure if people understood about homelessness in Kansas City, or weren't sure what it looked like. What does it look like? Like if you were to give us a snapshot, what does the picture look like? Because I think there may be some stereotypes out there that you might have a chance to speak into.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, Gary, it's still something I'm still learning about as I'm just, newly joining the team here, but it's something that I've already had some of my kind of stereotypes I had in my mind. I've had those kind of, it's like, all right, that's not accurate. That's not true. So it's still a learning process for me here as I learn everything the mission does and who we serve and what that looks like. But something I can kind of tell you just off the top of my head here would be in Kansas City alone. I have a statistic I pulled for this because I thought this may kind of come up. There's 711 people in Kansas City that are currently unhoused. And so that may seem like a lot already. Like to me, that already seems like a really big number. If you think about, over 700 individuals that are homeless. But the craziest thing, and this is something I was recently talking with a coworker about, is just beyond that, there's the hidden homelessness. So what that means is, you've got especially women and children who do a lot of couch surfing or maybe, temporarily crashing somewhere. And so they're going underreported. They do not have a stable living environment. They do not have a home, but they're also not included in that 700 plus that we have reported here. So that's a huge, just for kind of a snapshot of the scale of what we're working with here. And then another thing, which I think this is kind of relatable as, costs on almost everything have been going up, inflation, just the world, is the way it is right now. You can think through how these extremely low income households that maybe aren't homeless, but they're so cost burdened that they're really just one kind of unexpected expense away or one emergency away from ending up, homeless, even if it's just, okay, I, was ill, I wasn't able to work, we didn't get that income now, and now we're not able to pay our rent, we're not able to pay our bills, and how that's really not far away for so many individuals and families in our community. So those were all numbers and things that I've been just kind of processing and learning as I've joined this organization. But so that would be one thing. Just kind
I thought you might go there because it was a real learning experience for me when our church started digging into this a little bit more. A couple of things that were surprising to me, even shocking maybe, was how many children were involved in homelessness. And like you said, most of them were couch surfing or there's at a friend's or something. So they aren't reported. In Olathe alone, and this is five years old, it was over 340 something was the last number that I think I heard. At that point in time. I imagine it's grown since then. But the other thing that stood out to me was how many single moms were caught in this. And I can't remember the number. I don't want to say a wrong number, but I might be accused of pastor math or something like that. But I know the number was surprising to me. And people are one life event. This is what I heard when I was digging into it. Single moms are one life event away from being on the street and homeless. And so there is a huge need here. And I was hoping that you would go there and talk about that because I do think people tend to think oh, it's an old man who, is a veteran, or they've lost their family and they've got a backpack and they're on a corner or they're under a bridge, and people think that's homelessness. And that maybe is a visible way, but there's a whole lot of invisible homelessness.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I think another, and you kind of mentioned this in your additional question or in your initial question, would be just, the stereotype of, okay, why don't they just get a job? Or, why are they standing on the corner? What does that look like? And obviously there are some individuals that do choose the homeless lifestyle, but I think that's definitely not the majority. And for a lot of these individuals, it's not that simple. It's, their homelessness is stemming from mental health issues, addiction, trauma. Those are the things that drive homelessness. And so if those things aren't addressed, there's not really an easy way out. It's not as simple as, okay, just get a job. So I think that's something that City Union Mission does a really amazing job of, is taking this people first approach and seeking to meet people where they're at with these specific, struggles and with their past and, where they're at, of just seeking to help them there and kind of meet them there. So I think that's, just a huge part of what we do and something that has really stuck out to me.
Yeah. And, you've mentioned several times, whether it's, just the fact that you are kind of new to the position, but also just the program is really new, and it sounds like, you're really entering a really challenging world, and it's a new role for you. In what ways do you find yourself kind of needing to trust God and lean into God more as you are kind of facing this, kind of as a new program and trying to organize all of that and entering this whole world of, nonprofit, even, all of that, personal, what does that, look like in terms of having to really lean into God and trust God in like a whole new way?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it feels constant, just leaning into him. And I think, for myself personally, as I felt like I'm in a little bit of uncharted territory just with starting a new program, but it's also something I'm new to. So it's like, there's, so just no handbook for us right now on our team. And, that's okay. And we're just trying to do something new, and that's part of it. But I think for me, there's just been a lot of times where I've had to just kind of push myself and step out in faith and kind of, just trust that it's like, all right, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Kind of like, Lord, I trust that you're going to, we're going to bring what needs to happen out of these situations and these conversations. And, just kind of for me, it's just been trying to get the ball rolling and get some traction as far as getting the word out about this program. It's like, we've talked through some of the statistics of people that are at risk for homelessness and homeless. And it's like, how do we help these, specifically the young adults here, this population that we're an underserved population that we're trying to serve? How do we help, them at least know what these resources are that are available to them? So there's been just, some trial and error and a whole lot of prayer involved in just trusting that the Lord will move in the way he sees fit, and that trying to just be the hands and feet here in a very small way and kind of do what we can, I would say, and do what I can. And that would be kind of what I would say there.
When I drill down just a little bit further, Halley, in terms of, so every leader faces crisis. In terms of, they can be big or small, but in terms of taking what they feel called to do and what they want to do, and then applying it, and they'll run into detours along the way. Things don't always work out quite like you imagined that they would. And I would imagine you've had some of those. You can talk about them if you want or not. But I am curious of how do you navigate those? Because virtually everybody we talk to, as they go on this journey to follow God and to live on mission, it's inspiring, it's exciting, they want to do it. There's this feeling of propulsion almost from the Holy Spirit as they enter. But inevitably, there are these times where we just go, wow, I wasn't expecting this, or how do I handle this feeling that's come up? Or how do I handle a closed door? Or for some people, it's funding. It's a lot of different things, but everybody has to navigate that. But sometimes people think, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm not in God's will because I'm facing these obstacles. But there's this whole process then of sorting this all out and doing this with God when things aren't going just the way we thought. I wonder, have you faced anything like that? And if you have anything you could share with the listeners, because they probably are facing things like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll clarify here because I don't want to, steal credit here by any means, but like I'm, new to the City Gap team and City Union mission, but there are individuals on the City Gap team that have been dreaming of this and part of City Union mission for years and decades even. I'm thinking of one individual in particular, and they have seen the need for a program like this, and they have prayed and dreamed and, brainstormed and everything in between of, kind of what this City Gap program could look like and how to make that happen. So it's been a long time coming. And I think that's something that helps, our team kind of get over some of those roadblocks and, shut doors and opened windows and everything that can kind of happen that you're alluding to there is just the call that, the team as a whole has felt that this is a need, within our community and within our world, that this underserved population of young adults and just something we've seen, as people are, graduating from our summer camp and, they're still not necessarily set on a trajectory for life. And it's like, if we can just step in and, help them in that phase of life and those types of things. So that's a little more context just because, I'm not really the one behind it all by any means. And I don't want to take that. You are
illustrating something that if we have a team, if we have a team and if we have community around us while we're pursuing God, we don't feel quite as alone. We probably don't feel quite as stuck. And sometimes when I think about God's call in our life, I think about like a rainbow when you see this big arc. And so I would say that the beginning of the arc is God's redemptive story that he's building, and it goes across our whole lifetime. There's probably an arc, for all of history too, but we'll talk about our individual lives for a moment here. There's this arc. I understand who I am in God. I feel like I have a calling, and this life of service begins. So the arc is there of God's redemptive purpose being fulfilled in Halley's life. But if you go down to the ground level, there's all kinds of little hills and valleys. As the arc of God's work in your life is definitely clear. You can see it, I can hear it. But along the ground level, there's mountains to climb. There's valleys to be able to work your way through. And I think there's a fair amount of that for everyone.
Yes.
And, so I can hear that in what you're saying, but I just think of people who are listening, it's really good for them to hear, Halley had to work through this or work through that.
Yeah,
I think what's one of those?
Oh goodness, no, we've got a list, and ever being edited list there. But one of the big ones would be our facility in Warsaw, and just supply chain, construction, labor force, all of that. It's been slow moving. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things that we're looking, we're anticipating starting this summer. Kind of May 30th is our launch date that we're targeting right now and, working towards. And just there are things that feel kind of outside of my team's direct control because, it's like we're working with contractors and other organizations, and we're seeing roadblocks and things come up that we weren't anticipating, there being this specific issue with the facility or, this taking that long. So I think that's been a big one. And then another big one would be just staffing. It's hard, especially with City Gap being a residential program there in Warsaw. It's not, I myself work out of Kansas City, and I'm, going to Warsaw, frequently to meet with the team and work on different projects and stuff. But I'm not, I haven't pulled the trigger on moving to Warsaw, and not everyone that works at the mission wants to, and that's okay. But trying to staff our program appropriately in just what's a really crazy time, I think, in the kind of the labor force as a whole. So those are two roadblocks that we've kind of had to, I think, let go and let God a little bit, to use a cliche there, and just kind of trust that he's going to provide, and that this is all, going according to his plan, even if we don't quite see it yet. So those would be two things that have been, really just, there's been frustrating, and just things that we're still in the process of working through and trying to trust him through.
Wow. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. That sounds definitely like a God-sized challenge that no one else can jump in there. So we'll definitely be keeping you guys in prayer and believing with you for his provision. Yes. And I just wanted to ask you, I'm sure for those of us listening who lives in Kansas City or maybe in the surrounding areas, what are the ways that they can help or be involved or, if they wanted to be, part of what you guys are doing?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the first step would really be you can go to cityunionmission.org, and there you can donate if you want to give, financially. And if you're wanting to volunteer, we also have a page there for volunteers where you can see that there's an amazing amount of opportunities to volunteer, whether it's something you want to do ongoing or you want to get your church involved, small or larger scale. There's a lot of really great opportunities there. And then as far as City Gap specifically, you can go to citygap.org. We'll take you to our page, and you can reach out to us at gapinfo@cityunionmission.org and reach out to us if you have any questions or you want to get involved. I mean, we're still kind of looking at what those volunteers for City Gap specifically, what those needs will be. But I know I already foresee that we'll be needing people if there's anyone that wants to come and teach a course as we're trying to work through these practical life skills, things like budgeting, like car maintenance. And we're working with individuals, within City Union Mission and within the community of kind of like who has skills and expertise that they want to, pour into these young people. So that's one potential volunteer opportunity that I'll just kind of throw out there because I would love to see how the Lord would continue to provide there. And then lastly would just be, pray for City Gap and City Union Mission and everything that the Lord is, we're praying and trying to see the Lord meet us here and what we're trying to do. But that would be kind of some of the big things would just be, get online, shoot us an email, and let's have that conversation. If something's on your heart that you would like to be involved, we'd be happy to see what that can look like.
Yeah, that's great. So Samantha will put into the post podcast the numbers where people can find you. Yeah. And if someone's listening from iTunes or you're listening from Google Play or something like that, I might encourage you also to jump over to Love KC's Living on Mission page. You can physically see the podcast. You can see Halley and hear her, but also people can interact there. So those are good opportunities for people to leave a post or to ask a question or to interact. So if you have something you want to actually directly communicate with Halley and you want to get to her, that's a good place to start. And then you can go from there. You can also find all of these on YouTube. So anytime if you hear something you like or you want to share it, it's really easy to go over to Love KC's YouTube channel. And then you can share it from there really easily. But I want to give you a chance, Halley, as we wrap up today, to say, what would you say to the people who might be where you were before you found City Union Mission? So they feel like that have a calling on their life. They're not sure what it is, but they feel like they were made for something. And maybe they feel like they're made for more, but they haven't found the more yet. How would you help them kind of navigate that feeling? What would you encourage them to do to take a next step in living on mission?
Oh man, yeah, that's a good question. I think, one just practical would be, be curious. And I think it's okay to lean into those feelings of, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And it's not, negative to question that. I mean, we serve a big God and he can handle those questions and doubts, with ease. And I think it's, I'm so glad I had that conversation that I didn't think would turn into anything. And it ended up, turning into me joining this team in this ministry. And it's something I'm just so thankful for. And just continue to trust the Lord there. It's funny, I have a sticky note here on my laptop, and it's Proverbs 3 verses 5-6. And it's trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and all your ways acknowledge him. So, it's a huge part of what I've told myself and what I continue to tell myself, what got me here and what I'm hoping is going to kind of see us through here as we undertake this project. So, that's what I would tell people is, just continue to trust on him. And
I love that. So be curious.
Yep.
And trust God, take some steps forward.
Absolutely.
The scripture that came to my mind while you were talking was, that God's ways are higher than our ways.
Yes.
And his plans are beyond searching out. So sometimes the very thing that we feel like we maybe hit a boundary, or we hit a closed door, or we hit a place of dissatisfaction can be the way that God gets our attention to move us into something that actually gets us more in line with who he's made us to be. And it sounds like you're glad you made that choice.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Haven't looked back. Don't plan to.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Halley. Well, thank you for taking the time today to talk to our listeners.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are listening, thank you for joining. Feel free to share, and look forward to the next subscribe so you can hear the next person talking about living on mission. And while we're going through our life, let's embrace the community that Halley talked about. It's important to have people around us who have similar life values and goals and are sharing in this confident trust that God will get us to where he wants us to be if we'll just listen and pay attention and take steps and follow. So thank you, Halley.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you,
Samantha.
Halley. Thanks for sharing with us.
For your leadership here. And to those of you who are in this role now, it's your turn. And we just say, why don't you follow God? Join him where he's already at work, where you live, learn, work, and play, live on mission. And I think you'll find your best life. So God bless you. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this episode of the Blessed Podcast. We hope this podcast informed and encouraged you. Remember to subscribe on your favorite format, iTunes, Google Play, or YouTube. If you want to see the interview on Zoom, hop over to our Love KC Living on Mission Facebook group. Have a blessed day.